I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. All right, Foxy listeners, buckle in because we're going to be talking about some things that might be uncomfortable but needs to be said. And I've been doing some deep dive on our guest today, and I'm really excited for this because I love storytelling. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I am so excited to be here. I think we're going to have a great conversation, and I'm just really honored to be here with you today. So thank you.
So give us a little history on you for those that haven't been deep diving like I have.
I'll kind of take you through just real quick. I am 41 years old. I have been in like the business world, for 20 years after college. I landed in metal sales after I graduated. I don't think there's many folks out there that are like dreaming of being a metal salesperson when they're children. But it was a really good education, and it was all negotiable pricing and everything. It was hard and contracts and everything. So as a young whippersnapper, I learned quite a bit, and I did really well at it, and did that for about 5 years until the Great Recession happened, and it really affected our industry. 401k matching was stopped, and commissions were stopped, and I fulfilled my dream of moving from Los Angeles to New York. I'd always wanted to live in New York. Started anew. I was willing to start as a waiter if I would have had to or anything. And I did land a job in a consumer product capacity in sales, working for a up and coming baby product brand. This was 2010, and baby product, it was a category, baby products were a category that have not been innovated. And a lot of it was happening in New York because even really rich people in New York lived in pretty small apartments and didn't want to look at a Winnie the Pooh, diaper bag next to their Jonathan Adler,
Right.
$25,000 chair or whatever. So I was a big part of that movement and just like really inventing this entire category and industry. And I worked for a company named Aiden and Ane. Anybody out there with babies probably knows of them. They really, the founder brought swaddling to America in the way that it's so profound today. And then I spent about 8 years I spent about 5 years working for a couple of different baby product companies, and I left to go into software sales. I left baby product. I mean, it was really consumer products. I didn't really like it.
Right.
And like in a sales and operations capacity, you have to ship these like millions of tchotchkes around the globe flawlessly, and like mistakes happen, and it's like a mistake happens and everyone's penalized like ridiculous, which makes a little bit of sense. You owned a retail store, you know what it's like to get like something that's labeled wrong. It sucks and it's a lot of work, but it's like things happen, but there's no one makes enough money to allow for problems.
Right.
And it just
I got some of my best selling stuff because of a mistake. They sent me somebody else's stuff, and I was like, well, this is neat stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there is some once in a while you have a little success like that, but like, yeah, I mean, it's like that's kind of like shit just kind of rolls downhill, and it's like the person that has to absorb it like is screwed. I mean, there's times when you're shipping $1 million order and it's all labeled wrong. The profit the company, the brand might be, a couple $100,000 minus commissions, minus like operations, and the chargeback could be $200,000. So it's like this whole like I mean, for me, and I'm not saying that it's a bad industry, it just wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
So I went into software sales. My partner, him and I have been together for about 13 years now, and he was in software sales, and I was like, this is like kind of great. You have to close a handful or 2 or 3 of deals a year. Not that they're easy, but it's just like there's a lot
A
less
little
moving
bit like, yeah.
pieces. I mean, and there's still problems on, every company has an operations and fulfillment team and things go wrong sometimes, but not like where it's like you get an email on a Friday and like, oh, you shipped us 25,000 tchotchkes and the wrong labels on them. Good luck figuring this out. Um, so I went into software sales and it was really good. I mean, I mean, I made a lot of money doing it, but I worked for a startup company and the business failed very quickly and the writing was on the wall. And I went into panic mode. I was living in New York at the time and I had saved some money. I mean, I probably had a few $100,000 saved. But I went into panic mode, and at the same time, I never had. I mean, I didn't want this. This software sales job was like the ultimate freedom, and I was like, "There's no way I can go back to working for somebody where I have to be at a desk at 5 o'clock on a Friday just
Right.
to like follow the rules." So I started a consulting business, and I didn't really. It wasn't a dream. It was just kind of like I wanted freedom, and this seemed like the path towards freedom. And I did this, and immediately I was met with So I started this consulting business, consulting consumer product brands again. I went back to an industry that I very consciously left. And I've started to think about this a lot lately. I liked my job. Like the people I was a great company. I loved my boss. I loved the people that I worked with. I left because this was not what I wanted to spend my life doing. I went back to it. And I was
Which we
met
tend
with,
to go back to kind of like what we know, right? Especially when we're in that panic
yeah.
mode that you're like, I don't know, it's not the time to reinvent.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the thing about this baby product industry, and I think a lot of retail people are pretty nice. There's a lot
Mhm.
of personalities, but like in general, I mean, there's some weird people that are irate about things that are not a big deal. But like in general, like it was a lot nicer than software sales in terms of dealing with people that were like just everyone's a little happier, I think, in retail on some levels.
Yeah.
Um, Not all. I mean, there's a lot of stress and stuff. So I mean, it's you get what I'm saying. But I was instantaneously met with horrible worrying. I called it worrying at the time, worrying that made me really sad. I was really sad. So worrying that was making me depressed to the point where I was worried I would hurt myself. And I went to the doctor, and she found out I had high blood pressure. No big shocker. I was drinking a ton and smoking a pack of cigarettes every day. And but the health, like there was something about the health problems, like having high blood pressure, that really frightened me. I was, at the time 32 years old, and like
Not usually something you think you're going to come across. Like
it's really
yeah,
not. I
it's
mean,
like in your 60s, 70s, 80s.
yeah, it's very uncommon to have high blood pressure at a young
Hmm.
age like that. And so I ended up in the hospital a couple of times thinking I was dying of a heart attack. That set me down a journey of like figuring out what the heck was going on. And after visiting specialist after specialist, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. There was a time when I was in the doctor's office every single day of the week sometimes.
And
Just
is
like
this all while you're still running the consulting company?
still doing it. Yep. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in the back of an Uber, like, going to a doctor's appointment and just not telling people because I was afraid that, like, that they would think I was weak. Um, and, um, yeah, I mean, so during this process, I was living in New York. We moved back to Los Angeles. And that was the first day we moved to Los Angeles. I ended up in the hospital that night thinking I was dying of a heart attack. Um, and this all led me to, I mean, I had to, like, I went to doctor after doctor, cardiologist, pulmonologist, addiction specialist, head and neck surgeon because I couldn't breathe. I mean, that's because I was an anxious mess and my anxiety was affecting my breathing. And like the doctors really couldn't find anything wrong with me. And finally, I went to a neurologist who was like, Matt, I've seen this a million times. He was like the rudest guy. He was like, don't ever come back. I've seen this a million times. What you're dealing with is anxiety. Go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist. Okay, so anxiety, like, I mean, I like anxiety was all around me growing up. My grandparents were the most anxious, still to this day. I don't really think I've ever met anybody as anxious as my one grandmother. And she worried all the time. And I mean, you pick up your habits from what you see. My grandparents smoked, they drank, and um, that was just what they did. My grandmother ended up kind of taking her own life. I mean, she was really old and stuff, so I don't think it's not like as tragic as that happening to somebody young. I don't know. That's a whole nother story. But she overdosed on Valium because she just didn't want to worry anymore and stuff. And it's funny, like I've never been taken Valium. I never know anybody my age like that. Like doctors don't prescribe that to people anymore, I don't think.
I haven't heard it. Like I remember being younger and that was like a constant thing, like that
Yeah.
people were always talking about that. But yeah, it's not something that
No.
I hear anymore.
I think they have much more appropriate medications now than
Yeah.
like here, like take two of these and we'll see you in 2 days.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, there'd been anxiety around me all my life. I mean, everyone was anxious, and it just growing up, like mental health problems weren't a reason to be held down. And
Yeah.
so went on a journey of therapy and became a yoga teacher. Yoga was really important to me in my journey in terms of healing and therapy, and found coaching and got myself out of it, and realized that I am allowed to feel the way that I feel, and that the reason I felt the way that I did and worrying about things was because of what happened during childhood. I grew up in a house that there was love and there was warmth and there was food and clean clothes. I mean, very clean clothes. My mom was very clean, but there was just complete overwhelm and no space for emotional health problems. Um, and there was a lot of lack. Later in life, I found out, and I think this is what drives us, a lot of us entrepreneurs. I have had a few therapists be like, "Oh, like that's financial trauma. Like we grew up very poor, and we didn't have a lot, but there was more. There was a lot of saving for tomorrow,
Right.
and um, I mean, we never like went on vacations as a family other than just like piling in the van and going camping pretty much. So, and like it's a little different if that's like all you can do, but there was a little bit more to do. It's not that we had gone, I mean, the vacations weren't the biggest problem, let's be clear. It was more about just like we didn't eat out. I mean, it was like for kids, I mean, like for me and my brothers, it was like we were very clear that there was not money for things, like
Yeah.
mom, I mean, it's funny, like one of my friends a couple of years ago, she has a baby or a child now, a son now. And then she was like, "Oh yeah, like we bought him like, this toy." And I was like, "You do that?" She's like, "Oh yeah, like every week, we'll buy $20 toy or something like that." And I'm like, "Holy crap." Like I mean, we didn't get anything like that growing up, like just for the heck of it. And even Christmas, like, I mean, Christmases were very nice at our house, but that's where you got your bed sheets and that's where you got your
Yeah.
socks and underwear too. And like,
I
it wasn't,
remember when my son went to like started going to school and you have to like buy the school supplies and I was so excited because I'm like, you're gonna get brand new supplies every single year because I remember we had to like when the last day of school we brought everything home and we had to go through absolutely everything. What still worked because we weren't just gonna buy new stuff. You reused from year to year to year.
yeah.
And my son was like, didn't want to have nothing to do with that. He was like, my pencils still work from last year. Like it
Yeah.
was very humbling that I was like, here it was something that I thought was like so lacking for me and he could care less.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it's really interesting to hear that because like, and it's not that there should be excess and waste, but it's just like, kids shouldn't feel that financial stress,
Yeah.
the best that they can be kept from it. They also should, in my opinion, they should understand the value of a dollar. But yeah, so I probably went a little longer on this than I
That's okay.
anticipated. Now that I'm like thinking about it. But so I went on a massive healing journey. I grew, I learned my value, I learned my worth, I learned to love myself, I learned compassion for myself. I learned that the services I was providing my clients were absolutely changing their lives. And being in a sales and revenue generation capacity, like some of that was due to me in a bigger capacity than what was being given, bigger than what I knew to ask for, because I grew up like thinking $100,000 was like, a ton of money. And so I did the work, and I don't say this to brag at all, but I was able to structure my compensation packages such that my consulting business was earning me $1 million a year. And I say this because it's the power of healing and learning what you are worth. And
Yeah.
no one's going to give you what you're worth unless you know to ask for it. And maybe I mean, people like you and I are compassionate. I like paying people a lot. I don't want to be like, this is market value. It's like, I want to pay you a wage to enjoy your life and go on vacations. But a lot of people aren't like that, and they, keep 90% for themselves and give 10% to everybody else who's doing a lot of the work. And even almost equally as important, I was able to eventually do this in about 15 hours a week by building a team. And my team was actually the people that I leaned on, and they knew what was going on with me. I felt too intimidated, but to really tell the people above me. But the people that were like lateral and below me, I hate the word below, but just
Yeah.
it's probably appropriate here. But the people that supported me, rather, I loved them, and I treated them the best I could. And there were some days where I just needed to be honest and be like, I can't get myself to do much more than what's absolutely imperative right now. And
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people like entrepreneurs who struggle with the worth aspect of it because they kind of get into this stage where they are going through, because owning a business isn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. And it is you got to like roller coasters. That's what I always say. Like, you got to like roller coasters and you got to like going off the rails because it's going to
yeah,
happen. But I think there's a lot of that, give and take and that pull feeling where you're like, I really do feel like I'm worth more than this. I want to charge this, but I also feel like a little bit of a fraud because like I know that like behind the scenes or like, I'm the mechanic with the shitty car, right?
mhm.
Whereas like my car should be pristine because that's what I do, kind of thing. And I know I felt like that sometimes too. Was that something that you kind of also wrestled with as you were going through this whole journey that it was that pull?
You know what's interesting is like when I was doing this business, I went with this might sound a little funny, but I went in a path that was comfortable. Like I knew how to do this already. So
Right.
like I had been very successful in sales and wholesale and marketing. And so I did this because it was what I knew. And despite all of the outside um obstacles, like this was relatively easy in terms of like knowing how to structure my day and what to do and the formula. But here's the crazy part. I walked away from this all 6 months ago. In the process, I had learned, I had um, created space in my days where I was able to really start investing in personal growth. I started writing a book about the whole journey. I mean, we're kind of glossing over a lot of the working through the generational and childhood trauma that I uncovered. And my parents and I had a falling out for a few years, and really worked on myself very deeply. And like as I learned more about myself and really like I thought something was always wrong with me. I didn't know that I had any uniquenesses that were valuable or good or anything. I just thought my purpose on this earth was to like sell things for companies or whatever.
Right.
And as I started to really get to know myself, like life started changing. Like my partner and I, we've been together for 13 years and we are going through surrogacy right now to have a child. Um, Something I never would have thought would be possible before because I just thought I was too broken and damaged. And so as I've continued down this path, my late 30s, or, into my 40s, I started to really realize that like, this isn't what I want to do with my life. And there's nothing wrong with it for somebody else, perhaps, but like, perhaps not. I mean, maybe, I think a lot of us are just kind of I think a lot of us are doing work functions that we don't want to do. And I think some of us also are built like my mom and I were talking. She was kind of a secretary and did some stuff like that, and she was happy with it. Like, I think a lot of us are happy just kind of going to work and doing what we're told and, being treated well while we're doing it. And that's great. The world needs a lot of those people. But when we have a call to do something else, like we're supposed to be doing that. And I moved in, so I left this consulting part of my life. It wasn't even really consulting by the time I left. It was really a services business
Right.
because two of the clients that I had been with, I'd stayed with for 7 and almost 8 years. What I said I would do in terms of getting this off the ground, I did, and it turned into like where I grew, 8-digit businesses. And and I like consulting. I like strategic consulting and just kind of being like on the, in the much more higher level, like mentorship, given like where I'm at, I've seen a million things. And I don't want to be in the day to day of that. And I've moved into strategic consulting and also coaching, where my sweet spot is really working with entrepreneurs, especially, or I love working with executives who like actually have done well and have some money that they actually can go out and start a real like business. I mean, that they could actually invest $2 or $3 million into something. So helping people like that have the courage to follow their intuition. But really, my specialty, what I do, it's really meeting of the three minds. It's the business advice and help and support, and really coming in and helping people fix and diagnose their business problems with also the health and wellness part of life. A big part of my journey has taught me, like, we can't ignore our health and wellness. And I know you're probably like, oh, another person telling me to work out. And like, it's not even just that. It's like, it's eating, like, not every meal has to be like this delicious thing. I mean, we need to get used to eating vegetables, and not only for our physical health, but like these things really affect our mental health. And you don't have to go like lift weights, but you got to get out of the house and go for a walk, and you got to like do things like. So I love
Yeah.
supporting people on this. And then and cooking has become a massive part of my life as I'm building my like personal brand around everything. Like, cooking is massively important to me. And I've started a YouTube channel, and just I hosting brunches for local business leaders at my home. And the third part of it is helping people with the courage, and really the courage and the strength and the like the personal parts to get us through, and also to listen to our intuition, and not do what I did and push past the point where you're not supposed to be pushing.
Hmm.
And building this consulting business, like, I left my last client about 6 months ago. And these past 6 months, as I've really been reflecting on this whole journey, I started writing a second book as well. And it's really been interesting. Like, I never really realized this, but those like, I mean, at the beginning of starting that consulting business, that wasn't like only me not knowing how to value myself and knowing how to set boundaries. That's what I thought was happening. I think what really was happening was that those were wake up calls telling me not to go down this path.
Hmm.
And at 41 years old right now, with a heck of a lot more bills and having to take a step back in my, financial, earnings to make this change. I mean, I've saved well, obviously. I mean, but I didn't make $1 million my whole life. I mean, several of those years were below average.
Yeah.
Several of them were above average, and a few of them were amazing. But I mean, if I would have looked back, I mean, I mean, I don't really have a lot of regrets in life, and I think it's because life is supposed to teach us things. If I could wish one thing differently for my life, I mean, probably wouldn't be here today, but like, one thing I would have wished differently would just have been at like 18, I would have taken the 6 months to like learn, when my bills were probably like $1,500 a month or something, like, to take that time to like really like, figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and invest, what, 6 times 15 is 7,500. No, $9,000. $9,000 would have been a heck of a lot cheap. My life is more than $9,000 a month, considerably more than 9,000 a month right now. So
Yeah.
a little more painful than it would have been, but it
Well,
was
and I
my
think it's
journey.
like realizing those moments. And that's where, I think hopefully most people who are parents try to pass those things on. Like the first thing I did as soon as my kid got a job is I was like, listen, I'm going to tell you everything I did wrong, and I'm going to show you how to do it right. And I mean, I always joke with them, and I'm like, you have to learn how to be financially stable. You have to learn how to invest and save now. And then you'd be like, why? I don't care. Right. And I'm like, because you're my retirement plan. So I'm taking this very seriously. Right. So it's kind of been an ongoing joke, but I think, there's lots of times too where, in my own journey, I kind of look at my son and, realize that there were some things that, when you were saying about your childhood, there were some things that you just do because that's what was done. Like that's what you grew up with. That's what you knew. My mom worked in the government, my dad worked in the military. You were supposed to just go to school, get a 9 to 5 job, work that for, you know, 40, 50 years, retire, and then I don't know what. That was just what you did. And I think I made it like 4 months and I was like, this is like soul sucking. Um, you know, but I hope for people is that they have that, like you were saying, that aspiration to have people like you who share their stories so that they feel that, they have the, I don't want to say permission, but that they can hear other stories of people going, it's okay to change what it is that you do, even as an entrepreneur. You don't have to stick with one thing and then just keep it forever. because
Mhm.
your idea of success should change as your life changes. It is not supposed to stay the same. God, I hope that what you thought was successful at 18 changes by the time you're 40.
I can't even count how many times in my professional career in working for corporate America, that I had been like admonished for my job switching, like, which I kind of look at my like LinkedIn profile now and I'm like, it wasn't even that bad. Like I worked at I had two different jobs in this metal sales business at probably 5 years. And then when I moved to New York, I had one job for like a year and a half, one for a little over a year. And then one for about 3 years. And then I, who kind of changed this for me is I heard about Barbara Corcoran. Do you know who she is?
It sounds familiar, but
She's like quite, I don't know if she's billionaire status, but she might be. She's built the Corcoran real estate empire, which is huge in America. But she's like, she's on Shark Tank. If you
oh,
watch her,
okay. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
I might forget. I wish I knew the exact number, but I think she said that she had like 21. She'd been fired maybe from 21 jobs, or she had 21 jobs like in a small amount of time. And it's like, this is what people do when they are trying to learn and they're trying to figure out what's right for them. So like, a company's admonishing somebody for not staying in a job they hate. I mean, I talk to so many people that are like, well, I hate this job that I just started, but I got to stay here for 2 years because I don't want to mess up my resume. You're gonna give 2 years of your life to this? Like, I would rather figure out how to explain this better, and it's all changing
Well,
now. Like
you
one of
can just not put it on your resume.
you can just not no one thinks that crap in the first place. So I
Nobody knows
agree.
how to do dates.
But yeah, I mean, we are, like we are supposed to be, we're supposed to be listening. I mean, really, you're being penalized for listening to yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I have so many people in my life right now that are like, they know that they've been at the same job for 10 years and they get their 3% raise, even though the market has gone up 10% a year. So people getting hired now are getting paid, way more than they are for staying for so long. Like, shame on the company that's doing that,
Hmm.
and of course people like are allowed to switch and do something different for themselves. But I think we're in a bigger, I think like that what's happening right now in the world, probably I'm not that smart about the whole world, but in America I am. And I think what's happening right now is just the cost of living has just skyrocketed. Like growing up, I never wondered whether or not I'd be able to buy a home. I
Yeah.
didn't know that I would have a home this nice. But like now, like if you're 22 years old making $55,000 a year, you're never buying a home. Like, sorry
Yeah.
to be a spoiler, but like, if I mean, like, there's no, I mean, the reason that I have what I have largely isn't because of making $1 million a year for a few years. A lot of it is because I saved, and I happen to have met the other person in the world. I probably shouldn't exaggerate that much, but another person in the world who had also saved from a very young age. And my parents, like what you said, I mean, they pass on what they know. My parents did a very good job saving. Too much sometimes, but like they pass that on, the importance of that. So I always saved from a young age, and even like my first commission check out of college, like kind of like always saved like 70-80% of commission checks and tax returns, and spent a little bit. But like, I mean, kids now, like I call them kids, 22-year-olds now making 55,000 bucks a year, saving like they can't save anything. That's what it costs
Yeah.
to live. They're probably going into debt and living with a roommate. I mean, the world's changed, and I think that right now we're valuing, everyone says experiences, but I think it's like, I mean, it's more like the lifestyle that we're like, that we're like, I mean, if you can't have a big house, then embrace it. And I'd rather have a small house and share a house and enjoy my life if like hard work doesn't necessarily pay
Yeah.
off.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because I know we always like, we'll drive around because I love like architecture. And so like we'll look at some like new houses that are being built and stuff. And even when my son was like really little and you'd be like, Mom, do you ever want like a big house like that? And I always remember going, no, because all that came into my head was like, God, that would be a night. That'd take me like 3 days to clean that freaking thing. Right. And it was like where my husband on the other side was like, listen, if we're in a house that big, I think we would have somebody like would be
Yeah.
paying somebody to clean it. But I was like, just like, I don't want to do that, right? Like, and it's, it's just that being okay with having a different point of view than what is sort of out there, what has come as the societal norm of this is what you have to do. This is how many hours you have to work. Like if you're an entrepreneur, you're supposed to work until you die at the end of the night and like fall into bed. And that becomes like, I feel like we're getting out of that, but I still feel that that's still like a rite of passage that
Mhm.
everybody says, oh yeah, I work like 80 hours. And so you figure like you talk about how you can achieve sort of a 20-hour week. Um, what can you give us a little description of like what that is like for you?
Yeah,
Or
I
how people
mean,
can even like snip a little bit out? Because I know people get really, attached to that medal of honor. I say
I
that
love
in
what you said, and
quotations.
I think, I mean, I love what you said, and I think like there is some element of like having, I hate the word, I mean, I don't hate it in this context, but like you do have to hustle at the beginning of doing something. There is a lot of like, there is doing, I mean, it's hard at the beginning to get something going, and it's been really interesting. Like I kind of thought, I mean, this journey of like starting a second business right now has been a lot more difficult than what I would expect. And it's not been difficult in terms of like there's not enough hours in the day. I mean, no, I wouldn't even know. It's been difficult because I'm making so many mistakes. I have spent so much money and time and effort going down the wrong paths. And it's been frustrating. I actually just posted, I started a Substack a few weeks ago and I just posted this today about this. And it's about like learning how to say no to things. But like, I wouldn't have been able to, like, you have to say yes to a lot of things to learn how to say no to what's not serving you.
Right.
So it's not been like this hasn't particularly been like stressful in a way of like there's not enough hours in a day. It's been more like going down the wrong paths, like going to this networking event and going to this stuff. And that's really like I started this thing called the Friday Brunch Club in my house. And this is a good example. It's kind of the derivative of this. Like I have a beautiful home. I love cooking. It's a huge part of me that I want to bring into my next business venture. And so like after going to all of these networking events, after investing thousands of dollars in Google Ads and investing like I did the thing of like posting on LinkedIn every single day, and then I mean I can go on forever, but like after all of this, like I started to put it together and be like, huh, like what can I do differently? Like how could I stand out here? And I looked at like Google Ads, for example, the cost of like by the time like after all the I mean, if you look at a month, after the cost per click, the actual people that hop on a call with me, it's costing about $150 a lead right now, which I'm told is good. So I'm like, okay, you know how many people I can feed for brunch for $150 in my home? Like
Yeah.
a lot. Like, and that's really kind of my specialty with cooking is I make things that look like really good that aren't that hard. I'm not throwing a slop of oatmeal in front of people. I'm actually making a really beautiful lunch, but like, I mean, I'm sorry, brunch, but like I made blueberry muffins last week and I'm like doing the math and I'm recording this on YouTube and sharing it. And it's like these blueberry muffins cost like probably like 80 cents a piece and they're like homemade, like, so it's like, and I mean, like you start like putting this together, it's not really that expensive. So I took all of that I'd learned, going to all these networking events and like um, just doing what I was told to realize like I want to do this my way. And I think like I mean I don't buy into the you have to spend 80 hours a week doing something to get things going unless it is like I think I probably am putting in more hours than it feels like because what I am doing is actually really fulfilling. So I would never, you're not going to hear me complain about putting in 80 hours a week, although I may be doing that. I'm not exactly sure. Because it doesn't feel like
That's good
work.
if you're not keeping track of it, right? Like it's when you know. It's when you know the
Yeah,
number.
it's about working. I mean, there is really a working smarter and not harder element. And I am a huge reader. I think that, like, in my coaching practice, I kind of started off saying, like, I never really want to tell somebody they have to follow a certain, like, modality. Like, you don't have to do yoga to be part of my, mentorship. But I think you do have to read to be a part of my mentorship because, like, I think that you have to read because that's where your ideas come from and that's where you're furthering what you're learning with me. I mean, I'm listening to a book called 10x is easier than 2x for the fourth time. I've never listened to a book four times, but one thing that I've noticed, I have I don't read a ton of business books, to be honest. I mean, I read a lot. So like I read, I don't know, six business books a year or something, maybe eight, whatever. But I read a lot of memoirs and like stuff like, so those are business books essentially. People that
Absolutely, I
have
think so.
built their, but one thing I've realized in learning in, reading these business books recently, and I don't know if I'm just seeing this, like the red Toyota thing, where they say like if you want a red Toyota, you're going to see a red Toyota. But what I've realized, every single one of these books that I've read recently has said that they take time off. They allow themselves the weekends to recover. And so I really, really, really tried to implement that. And when I can't or don't, I shouldn't say can't, when I choose not to, we always have a choice. When I choose not to, I'm using my Saturdays and Sundays to do creative work. And I'm getting out and hiking and doing things that are allowing my week's lessons and mistakes and failures to permeate and to make more sense. Um, so I do think that it's really important for us to, it's really important for us to allow ourselves that time off, because if you're just working around the clock, you're just like, you're never allowing yourself time to really think about the business. Like you're
Yeah.
always working, not even on the business, you're working in the business.
Yeah. Well, and it's easy to get stuck. Like I always compare it, I always tell people like when they're like, I just don't understand this. Like I'm so frustrated. I'm like walk away from it for a day. Like put it down.
Mhm.
Because you're staring at it too long. So you're not going to see why why it's not working. But as soon as you walk away and come back,
Yeah,
and I'm a crafter, so I do like a lot of knitting. And I used to tell that to all like when I had the craft store and I was talking to the students, and I would say, walk away from it. You're just like you're too close to it. You need to walk away, and then all of a sudden it jumps out at you, and you can see what the problem is, and then you can move on. But I
totally.
feel it's the same thing with creativity. If we just immerse ourselves into the business, we get kind of stuck in this like monotony in the gear wheels, and we forget how to imagine. We forget how to just let our minds wander. Like my favorite thing to do is when I have like friends who have toddlers, and I'm like, I will 100% babysit you and for you, and because these kids are just like such a wealth for me. They remind me to open my eyes. Like there
Mhm.
is nothing like a toddler who can think outside of the box, like who can, take a stick and it can be a gun and a walking stick and a cane and, then it's a leash and like and I'm just like, oh my God, like this is
Yeah,
just all of a sudden all these ideas come and I'm grateful for it. But like you, I spent a lot of years not doing that, thinking if I just grind, if I just push
yeah.
farther, like eventually it'll happen, or something
Yeah.
will come up.
And to further answer your, I realize I didn't address like the 15-hour a week thing directly, but like I mean, I remember back, like, I don't remember which job it was, if I was like 22 or 26 or something, but somewhere early in my career, I remember asking like one of my bosses, they're probably like, what an idiot. But like, I asked them, I was like, why do businesses always need to grow? Because it never made sense to me. Like that, I mean, and I think it's fine to grow a business, but like, my business was making me $1 million a year. I wanted more time. I didn't want more money. And
Right.
if you're doing the same kind of thing over and over again, it's a process at that point that is trainable, that is outsourceable, that is something that does become a much lower commitment than it does when you're figuring something out. In hindsight, making $2 million a year would have done nothing to me, nothing for me. Like I am much happier with the choice I made. And I mean, and it's about leading compassionately, honestly. Like I think this is the biggest, like, because I mean, I work with some companies right now, like, helping leadership development. And it's funny, like, I never would have thought in a million years I'd be doing this, but like, it's like, there's all of these like programs and stuff about like how to like do this, more effectiveness, more processes, more accountability. Like as somebody like me, like having to document my work was like the last, and there is some value to some of it, but it's like there's also like what I help people with, it's like, treat your employees well, put yourself in their shoes, and you think how you're going to feel you think how you would feel if your boss is pulling up to work in a $200,000 car going on vacations all the time when they're making $55,000 a year working 50 hours a week, being told that their health insurance is going to have to be a little bit lower coverage because the company's not making their profitability goals. Like, you think how you would feel doing that. You would be not motivated, and you, the boss, you, the owner, you're clearly on vacation all the time doing things. So you don't want to deal with training somebody new. So, like, the business is suffering because there's no accountability to the employee. You're gone all the time and no one respects you. And
Yeah.
take that scenario, I mean, employees generally expect the boss to be pulling up in a $200,000 car and going on vacations all the time. And no one really has a problem with that. They have a problem with it when they're getting paid not enough money to live a life that actually feels good. And if you treat people the way that you want to be treated, respect them. Like, I had an employee at the last role that I was in where I was managing the team of 15 or so people. By the way, zero attrition in like 8 years because I earned people's respect. Like, one of my employees would come to me and be like, somebody else put this on my plate. And I'd be like, all right, I'll help you take something else off your plate that's not that important for me, because a lot of the stuff that's being done isn't that important for me. And if this report skips a week, guess what? Life goes on. I don't want you having to work till 8 o'clock tonight to do it when the value I get out of this is marginally. So I totally think that any company could do so much more if they were to treat employees better than they do. And everybody's like, get back to the office. We think you're not doing good enough. If we micromanage you closer, you're going to be happy. I mean, you're going to be better.
Yeah.
What?
And
No
we
way.
switched like that everything that happened around it, but COVID was a great thing for my business because everybody went home, and then when we were like coming back, everybody was like, I don't really want to come back. And I'm like, like, to me? And I'm like, I'm lovely. But they were like, we're really kind of enjoying this. And I sort of went, I need to let go that everybody needs to be here.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay. And I was like, however, like, it doesn't matter. We switched to everybody being in a salaried position that they were happy with. And then I was like, so here's the deal. You just have to get your work done. So if
Yeah.
you can manage to do it in 4 hours, great. And if it takes you 8 hours, great. If the quality is there, then I'm not going to micromanage and expect you to like time click.
I
I just want the project sent in. And that was a really hard shift for me. But now I'm so grateful for it because everybody's more relaxed, right? They know that if they want to take a couple of days and that's their deadline, they know when the deadline is.
for any leader out there right now who's listening, I mean, none of you want to work 8 hours when you can finish your job in 4 hours. So why would you think that somebody
Right.
else should have to work 8 hours? We're all trying to get our jobs done as
Yeah,
fast as
just scrubbing
possible.
that window going, like, I got
So we
it. There's
could,
4 hours left.
and honestly, as a leader, shame on me. Like, I've had employees before. Let me be more clear about that. I've had employees before that I wasn't giving 8 hours of work to each day. That's my fault for not I mean,
Filling.
yeah, like, and are there times that like, but like, it all evens out in the end. There are some times where it's like, yeah, if the employee has 2 months of the year that they're only getting 4 hours a day of work, then like, whatever. I mean, it doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things. But like, what? I mean, I can very humbly say, like, if there were times that I'd be more organized, if I wanted to put in, extra time. And if I wanted to be more process oriented and more perfect and buttoned up, then yeah, I mean, I probably would be running a tighter ship. But at the end of the day, I don't want to work that hard where I'm like using every second of my time perfectly. So I mean, it just kind of like, it's okay to be relaxed is what I'm saying. That was kind of
Yeah.
weird, but like, it's okay not to like have everyone like working 8 straight hours a day. It's just like, we need to treat people the way we want to be treated.
Yeah,
And
I
so many
love that.
people, they forget about that and that being important. So
So you've mentioned books a couple of times, and of course you have your podcast. Tell us what else, like, talk a little bit about those things and what people can expect out of them, but what else, like, how else can people immerse themselves? So I know there's people who are listening that are going either eye openers or are like, testify, get that man a soapbox.
get
So
that next
talk to us about all the shameless plugs.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm in an interesting place, like, and I really am taking people along on the journey. I think like I was given this like superpower to be vulnerable and to let people in. And like, I don't work like when I work with clients, like I mean, to be really honest, like in a coaching perspective, I somewhat tried at the beginning to present a lot more polished than I am. I know I have a lot to offer, and I don't hide the fact that I am experiencing life alongside everybody. I know I was talking to my coach the other day, yesterday, and I said, and we were talking about this, and I was like, and she talked about a couple of weeks ago, she's on a fertility journey, and she got some unfortunate news, and she was like, I had a cigarette, and she talked about it on her podcast. And I was like, honestly, like hearing stuff like this just makes me love you even more, because like you're just relatable, and to be really clear, I don't think she's had a cigarette for like 8 years before that, but it was just like, why not have a cigarette? And she's been treating her body like an absolute temple, and it just sounded like something to do. And it's like, I think that like when I look out there in the world, that I'm a little bit grossed out by the coaching industry right now. And I don't know, see if anyone emails me about this, maybe not, but I think it's a little bit gross. There's all these programs, make $1 million in 4 months if you follow these 12 steps. And I've fallen into a couple things like this. Not that I didn't fall into something like that, but I've just fallen into like, this kind of one size fits all approach. And it's kind of grossed me out a little bit. And I've had to really like step back and realize that if I was working with the coaches that I had started with beginning in my career, that were literally just like making me the agenda, me showing up, I remember asking my first coach, I was like, can I talk to you about depression? And then she was like, I'm not a therapist, but I'm a human, Matt. Of course you can talk to me about depression. So, I mean, I'm just like, I want to like let everybody know that like, even though that I've like achieved this level of success, like I want to see people to see the obstacles that I've faced, how I've overcome them, and that there's no like definition of perfect. There's no place that it's completely done. But what I have done is I have worked through my anxiety. I've worked through my worrying issues. It's been interesting. I started saying like I don't have anxiety anymore, and I kind of checked myself, and I was like, oh, is that true, Matt? And then I really started inquiring. And I guess the way I would say this is like, I don't really have anxiety anymore. Like it might still be there a little bit, but like I've learned to like trust the process of life, and to like go within and ask myself, will I be okay? I mean, like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, the worst case scenario in the world for me, probably, other than a health catastrophe, would be that, like, I had to move in with somebody else, or, move in with a family member, or maybe somebody else moves in with us and we start, like, who's to say I wouldn't like that worse? I mean, like that better, like, where, we have four people at dinner at night instead of two of us, like when you start to like ask yourself that, like it changes things. And I've asked myself this a lot recently, like when I'm in a situation where like I'm building a new business, and no, I'm not making enough money to cover my bills at the exact moment. Things are absolutely growing. It's been, the first 6 months of this were a little challenging. I think that this is February we're talking. So like March, I think I'm actually going to hit my revenue goals. So that's really exciting. It happens, it's like a hockey stick. It turns
Yeah.
around. And to be honest, over these past 6 months, I haven't even had to touch my savings. I had, money in my checking account to hold this over. And I started like really asking myself, like, what is this destination that I want to get to? I mean, it is nice when money's coming in, you don't have to think about it and like stress about like, can I go out to dinner tonight, or should I go out I can go out to dinner. Should I be going out to dinner? But this is the destination right now. Like the obstacles that we are facing. My dog has an eye infection right now, and it's just like it's sad watching him, but like I also get to show up for him and be a good dog parent right now. Like this is life. And I think so many of us are in a constant place of trying to like run away from the discomforts, which is totally natural. But like when we learn to embrace the discomforts, we start to we start to go with the flow of life. And discomfort for me I'm on my soapbox, like you said, like discomfort for me has turned into this like gift that I've been able to listen to guide me. And on this journey these past 6 months, while I've been navigating, like some of the crap that I've been doing has been really painful. And that discomfort, like this is what yoga teaches you. Like when you're doing a pose and your knee feels like it's going to break, that is discomfort that you get out of. When you are sitting in a pose and your mind is racing and you feel uncomfortable, that's discomfort you're supposed to breathe through and learn how to tolerate, endure. Also be kind with yourself. You don't have to stay there the whole time. Stay 1 second longer this time than you did last time.
Yeah.
And so all this to say, if you want to follow my journey, I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I'm on TikTok and Instagram. I started a YouTube channel a while ago. My podcast is on a tiny bit of hold right now because I am reinventing it into something I'm calling At Home with Matt. I love cooking, like love, and as I've really embraced the discomfort of going down some wrong paths, I'm not this business guru anymore. Like I am someone that loves helping people with their business problems, but I'm really trying to build myself a business that feels really good. And it's been really interesting. The business model that I'm kind of like laying out, I mean, I do, work with high achievers. So coaching is not like, super like, I mean, it's a premium product because I've done a lot and I save my clients a lot of money and I'm in heartache and help them achieve remarkable transformation really quick. But I don't know. I'm kind of like, do I want to start a little bit of a bed and breakfast situation in our guest rooms? And I'm open to this. Anyone who's listening, if you're in LA, I host what I call the Friday morning brunch club. So reach out to me and I can add you to the wait list if you're, an exciting, amazing person where I just get people together. And reach out to me. I don't normally give my email address out, but I know that you have a great crew here. You can email me directly at matt@mattgerlach.com. My website at the top, you can download a workbook, which is a distillation of my entire life's learnings and growth that'll help you on your journey, and book a free call there if you want to, or just email me. But yeah, I'm just in a place of service right now and really trusting that like the world will take care of me financially, and just embracing like that if I do the right thing, it's all gonna come back and work itself out, and want to help others have the same peace that I've given myself.
Well, I love that. And thank you for being an example for people and to kind of to give themselves the permission that you get to reinvent as many times as you want, because that's
Yeah.
literally what life is all about. You're not
You're
supposed to know what you want to be when you grow up.
We should be changing. We should.
Yeah.
And the book, sorry, I didn't say that. My book is not published yet. They're still very much I shouldn't say very much. They're still in the works, but hopefully soon. So it's all coming together.
It's a long journey, but that's okay because I know there's going to be a lot of listeners who are in it for the long haul. So we'll make sure we have all of the links of where you can connect with Matt more and, just immerse yourself into learning in a different way. Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I'm so honored to be here and to spend this time with you. You've been a pleasure to spend my afternoon with, so thank you.
All times in life as an entrepreneur, like I said in the episode, is like a roller coaster, and you have to be prepared that you're going to go off the rails a couple of times. And it was one of the reasons I was really excited to have Matt on the show, because he is a person who is willing to kind of bear it all. And tear the curtain back so you can see sort of behind the scenes and, really just be admitting that journeys are not supposed to be just all roses and beautiful sunsets, that there is a lot of struggle that goes along. And as entrepreneurs and as business owners, it's important that we share not only the good stories, obviously the success, the feel good, but also sharing some of the struggles we went through. I think it's an important skill set to be able to have, because not only does it allow you not to withhold everything in yourself, it helps you to grow. It helps others to grow. It helps you and others not to feel like they're alone. And, I know I'm positive that everybody who's listening to my podcast has felt like that, has had those moments where you're like, ugh, why does this only happen to me? And that can be in personal or business life, because they are intertwined. And that's what I really liked about Matt is, his whole journey, and even the journey that he's going through right now, is really understanding that these things do kind of all sort of get put into the pot together. They're all blended together. And, really taking those moments to take a break, to take a few moments, to take a breather are really, really important. And that can be just taking small steps of really sitting down and going, Where do I want to go with this? So I really want to know, what is it that you pulled from this episode? Was there something that just made the light bulb go off in your head? Was there something that really made you think? Please reach out, let us know. You can let us know in the comments. You can email us. You can send us a message on social media. You can send smoke signals. We try to see those as well. And let us know, what did it make you think? What did it make you feel, so that we can share that with other people and come together and support each other through this journey of entrepreneurship and life. But no matter what it is that you plan on doing for today or tomorrow, make sure that you take time to have fun. Because as I will always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?